I love helping people. I always say to people, "What do you wanna do? What's your dream job? What do you wanna learn?" It's like that's the best thing in the world to me is having a show come off or, having everything go right. I don't need a lot of I don't want accolades. I just wanna see people succeed, I wanna see
Yeah.
people and shows succeed and do good work, and that's the fun part for me, and to learn and then, get to hang out with these really amazing people, and that's the best part. Yeah.
Well, hello, and thanks for joining me again today on Geese of Gear. I appreciate you being here, and I think we have another great episode today, so thanks again for joining me. First, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about LDI this year, and I've talked about it before. I know Sarah's been talking about it. You've probably seen us posting it on social media, but we are doing something called Dining with Dinosaurs this year. It is our second year. Last year was really just a test run, and it went pretty well and was a very good sort of first effort. But this year's nuts. This year is absolutely crazy what we're putting together for you. And the one thing I'm noticing is I keep getting the numbers from LDI. And although all of the friends and folks I know in the industry are telling me they're going to this event, so I'm thinking it's just going to be, full of people. LDI are telling me that ticket sales are still like somewhere around 100 tickets or something. By the way, this is the only sort of single ticket that you can get at LDI. Everything else is part of a package, part of, a certain type of badge or whatever. But this is Dining with Dinosaurs is a single ticket. It's a single event. It's a very special event that's going to include like a happy hour where you get some drinks and you can buy more drinks. I think we're giving away 3 along with the ticket. You get some food, and you, most importantly, get to hang out with some incredible people, watch them on a panel for a little bit, and then do sort of a roundtable thing where they'll just tell stories, answer questions, talk to people at the table, just really close up conversation and networking with some really incredible people in our industry. And so I'm just going to kind of read down sort of a partial list. I don't even think this is the complete list yet, but Scott DeVos, who is actually along with my lovely producer, Sarah, he is sort of the co-founder of this whole Dining with Dinosaurs thing. He actually launched the original sort of seedling of an idea. And like I usually do, I grabbed it and ran. John Wiseman, I don't think needs much of an introduction. If you don't know him, you really should know him. And again, to be able to be there and gain access to this person, these people, is just an incredible opportunity. And I want to make sure that that doesn't go unnoticed here at all. Roy Bickle is widely known as sort of one of the godfathers of rock and roll rigging as we know it today. Incredible storyteller. He's been on the podcast. If you haven't heard it, maybe go listen to that one as well. But again, to sit with people like this and be able to hear their stories in person right from their own mouth is just an incredible opportunity, especially if you're a young person in the industry. But even if you're, crusty and old like me, hearing these stories is incredible. Seth Jackson. Seth, again, has been on the podcast a couple times. Seth was part of the Dining with Dinosaurs event last year. He doesn't look like a dinosaur. He doesn't really talk like a dinosaur. I don't know how we even allow him to be included as a dinosaur, but he's an amazing guy and an incredible and very talented designer as well. Jake Berry, again, another one of those, doesn't really need an introduction. The production manager, extraordinaire. Jake this year was involved in the Big Ozzy send-off, and we'll obviously have some incredible stories to talk literally about Ozzy's final days on Earth and what that show was like. There were a lot of really great stories that came out of that show and just how complicated it was. And it really took a guy like Jake to put that together. But also Jake was the very first act in the Sphere in Las Vegas. with you two, and so many other accolades. He's just an incredible man and great storyteller and has some incredible stories. Speaking of stories, if you are on Facebook on a Thursday at any given moment, you probably know Mr. Bob Harmon. One of the, especially in written storytelling, one of the best there is. He does these posts about, 2 miles long on Facebook that are just incredible stories with incredible detail. He's just one of the nicest guys. You probably see him walking around LDI every year dragging a suitcase full of bags of coffee. If you happen to be friendly with him and you know him and he knows you, he'll probably hand you one of those bags of coffee. So we're really happy to have Bob there. Peter Morse, again, no introduction needed. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, I think, Bette Midler, Madonna, so many acts, I don't even know them all. Tons and tons and tons of incredible tours and shows. And again, one of the nicest guys in the business, has a billion stories, happy to share them. We're happy to have him there, of course. Dave Shadon, who recently sold Sound Image to Claire, one of the inventors of rock and roll audio systems, big concert audio systems, and an extremely knowledgeable guy, a local Vegas guy. He was supposed to be with us last year and fell ill and wasn't able to. So we're really happy to have Dave coming this year. Bob Gordon, you'll remember him from Act Lighting. Bob. I'm sure you know Bob. He's the king of the consoles too, by the way. He not only was responsible for the MA Lighting console coming to the United States and becoming successful, but prior to that, let me think, what was the other really super successful console in concert lighting in the United States? I'm talking moving light console, not the old AVO days, but moving light consoles. Of course, the Hog. And so Bob was also responsible for the Hog. He didn't invent it, he didn't create it, he didn't own it, but he certainly made it popular with ACT. And so Bob's a great guy and a fixture in our industry for so many years. He's mostly retired now, still doing some stuff, but just a really good guy to know, and some incredible old touring stories and stuff, how it was done. Mark Fetto. Mark was a very early Verilight guy. He spends his days at OSA now. Superb guy, knows how it was always done. Happy to share that information. And so, just an incredible list. Alan Branton is there this year. Alan Branton, if you don't know him, you're not a lighting person, I guess, because Alan Branton really is one of the most coveted, one of the most pursued lighting designers in the business, especially when it comes to televised musical events, whether it's an awards show or even Super Bowl halftime shows. He toured with David Bowie for a long time. Just, again, a very, very gracious guy with his time. He loves sharing information with younger designers and telling stories. I had him on the podcast recently. I enjoyed it a lot, and we're super happy that he's going to be here. John Procaccini and who else? Michael Abbott. Again, talk about founders of rock and roll rigging. What's one name that comes to mind? Probably Branham. Joe Branham. Guess who's here? Joe Branham. So when you think of account executives in the lighting business, certainly John Wiseman comes to mind, but there's another one that I think a lot of people think about. And he's been around certainly as long as John Wiseman has. He's done a huge amount of stuff. He was responsible for the original Square Parcan. Anyone? Yes, of course, Robert Roth. Marshall Bissett, one of the founders of TMB and a longtime part of TMB, and now retired and a great fly fisherman. And finally, today's guest, Nancy May, who sadly, it seems, is becoming the only woman this year at Dining with Dinosaurs. And that's sad because I know we had 3 or 4 women confirmed, and we're now down to one. So hopefully we have at least one other one coming on board, because we do want to have some women involved, even though it's tough to invite a woman and say, guess what? We want you to be a dinosaur on Dining with Dinosaurs. But everyone, I think, takes it with the fun and jest that it's meant to be. We're certainly not calling people dinosaurs to be mean or rude or anything like that. It's just a fun name and a fun event. So we're really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be one of the big networking events of the year. And if you're in the industry, you should be there. So today's guest is Nancy May, a veteran production executive with more than 30 years of experience running major live events, broadcast productions, and some of the most iconic venues in the country. Her career includes leadership roles at Red Rocks Amphitheater, the Denver Performing Arts Complex, and Dick Clark Productions, as well as key positions on large-scale international events like the Lake Placid 2023 FISU World University Games, the Aspen X Games, and the upcoming FIFA Club World Cup. Nancy is known for her exceptional skills in event logistics, safety oversight, venue operations, and managing complex productions from concept through execution. She's a problem solver, a steady leader under pressure, and someone who has helped bring thousands of events to life. So please join me and welcome Nancy May. Nancy, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's so good to see you.
Great to be seen. Great to see you.
You know, I was thinking this morning, and I think I'm correct in saying that I haven't seen you on a screen or otherwise since like the whole COVID thing, our weekly Zoom calls that you were on quite consistently.
That was so wonderful. I was still working full-time for the city of Denver, and we were
You
building
were.
homeless shelters and things like that during that time. But, I remember I stayed on one of those calls a little long, and we started talking about what they were doing with We Make events in England, and decided to do it here, and
Off we
there it
go.
went. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
off we go from a
Well,
crazy little idea and, you know, one lunatic man's ego to beat what the UK people did.
oh,
All
totally.
of a sudden we're lighting like 3,500 different facilities and buildings and bridges and whatever. So yeah, that was fun. And you were a part of that.
Well, it was very cool. Thank you. And I've loved listening into things because I've learned so much. Everybody in the business has taught me so much, and that's what I love, is learning and listening to people, and lurking on people's
Yeah. Well,
things.
this is a lurking podcast. It should be called
Okay,
like,
good.
Lurkers of Live or something, live lurkers. But no, I mean, it's what I love about our industry. I never have been a touring person. I don't know if you knew that. Most people don't know
No.
that. They just assume that everybody who does this kind of stuff was a touring person. I came into the industry knowing nothing. I came in as a lighting sales guy, and I barely knew anything about lighting. I was a bass player and a singer.
Oh.
And just through being in the lighting business as a sales guy, I met a lot of people, got involved with a lot of people, and I worked for Martin, an automated lighting manufacturer. So we spec'd a lot of lights with lighting designers, and I got to know
Mhm,
those lighting designers. And
mhm.
then through them, I got to know some production managers and some venue people. And, it just sort of blew up into this really cool network of really amazing people. So oftentimes when I'm on with someone, like I had Doc McGee on this podcast, I've had,
Oh.
Jake Berry a couple times, I've had loads of sort of legends of the
Mhm.
industry. And I'm just as big a fan as the people listening to the podcast, because I'm hearing these stories going, wow, that's incredible. And I pinch myself that I get to sit here and do this all the time. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I was never a touring guy. So, for me, like all of these stories are so wildly interesting. I find it a lot of fun.
Me too. I mean, I never really toured either. I did shows in a lot of different places, but never really toured, never really toured. So, and
Ah,
I love hearing the stories. That's where I've learned everything, is from the stories. And I bug people about, tell me, how you got into this, and tell me, what was your worst time? What was your best time? Your biggest achievement, whether anybody saw it or not. And I love hearing
yeah.
those stories from people.
Yeah,
So
me
I'm just
too.
generally nosy is what it comes down to. So,
Well, I guess you could call me sort of the ultimate nosy, because I get to do that
mhm.
every week with different people on this podcast. So, but it really is it's fun and interesting to discover those things, and especially like I get to have some really young people on here, sometimes young women, sometimes young men. And then I get to have people my age and much older than me on here at times. And just hearing the contrast and the differences of how people got into the industry, like, I love the trend and pattern where generally anyone who's over maybe 60 fell into the business completely by accident because they were
Mhm.
sitting in a Denny's having an omelet, and the guy sitting next to him goes, "Hey, I need some help on a show this afternoon. Can you come give me a hand?" And you're like, what do you mean? What show? What kind of show? Oh, well, come on, come with me. I'll pay you $20, or whatever. And next thing you know, they're a 50-year long touring person or rock and roll person or whatever. And nowadays it's much more programmed. It's much
Mhm.
more, they're going to school or they're taking some kind of training for it, or they're going through the theater system, or, it's much more formal now, it seems.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of programs which are great to hopefully put more people out there because
Yeah.
our base is getting a little older and we need to be bringing in fresh people, definitely.
So true. Yeah, so true. And every major company out there, whether it's PRG or Solo Tech or Upstaging or Bandit or whoever, they're all creating their own training programs for those reasons, because,
Mhm.
the great people are getting older and are aging out of the business or retiring or moving on to do different things or deciding to stay home instead or whatever. And it just leaves such a big hole,
Mhm.
not just from a labor standpoint, but from a knowledge standpoint.
Yeah,
It's
well,
just
we
left
we need
such
to
a big
bring up more
hole.
creative people too.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. Completely. So, speaking of which, how did you get started? How did you find your way into this wacky business, especially a woman,
Oh,
you
well, I
know?
was supposed to be a horse vet. I was going to school at CSU, Colorado State, to be a horse vet, and somebody asked me to come help with a concert, and there you go. I started doing concerts, and in the middle of a colic surgery, in the middle of the night, I kind of went, that concert thing kind of sounds better than being in the middle of a horse in the middle of the night. So I started doing shows in school, and then my father met John Ruby, who was the vice president of Phaline here in Denver, the big concert promoter, on a
Oh,
plane. My dad
wow.
was a child psychiatrist deadhead, and John said, "Hey, come in and I'll meet her." And I came in and met him, and they hired me to do security, which they would have probably if I'd just walked in the door anyway. But John was my mentor for years and
Security.
years. Yeah, and
So you said you were in college?
yeah, I was like 21, I think, something
So a
like that.
21-year-old young lady,
Yeah.
and the obvious job for you was security?
Well, that's the only I mean, I just walked in and they were hiring security people, and I was like, "Well, what the heck, I'll go do that." So, I started as a bouncer. We weren't event staff. Well, we were called event staff, but we were really security. We were really bouncers at the time.
That's
So,
wild. Yeah.
yeah, so I went in and they needed I started working shows and I went, "Well, this is kind of fun." And I was learning a lot, being a security person, I would ask everybody about everything. Here, tell me about the tickets and the ticket taking. And if I was standing with a stagehand, I'd ask him about this and that. And again, my nosiness, has paid off. But
Yeah.
from there, I found they needed somebody to schedule. So I started scheduling everybody. So I went from that to writing the first security manual for Red Rocks. And it was funny. I went back about 20 years later and found the security manual, and it's the same one I had written. And the way I knew it was the
No.
same is it still had my typos in it. You know,
Oh my
they'd
goodness.
never
It hadn't even
changed.
been
They just
updated.
yeah, had never even been even retyped. They just
Well, it
literally just kept
must have been
copying.
really good.
Well,
It never needed to evolve.
apparently so. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know what they've done since then, but I hope they've evolved. So,
Yeah.
from that I learned, I kind of saw a lot of the business and got my big break to be a runner at Red Rocks, which was great. And it wasn't just Red Rocks; it was for Face. So we did everything from the stadium shows, and I still have. I worked as putting up staging at one point, and have a big gash on my leg, a big scar from dropping an I beam or something at one point.
Oh boy.
And, so, I did every job. I like to say that I made a career out of doing every job nobody else wanted to do. I did ticketing. I did anything anybody wanted, needed to be done. So I ended up doing things like insurance declarations and, risk management and things like that later in my
But
career.
always local. You never traveled and did touring or
For Denver, yeah, it was pretty much local to Denver. Although I did pretty much all of the venues in Denver. Obviously the stadiums and the old McNichols Arena, which I ended up as the assistant manager of about 7 years after that, after I started, strangely enough. But we had the Rainbow Music Hall, which was a 1,200 seat theater. Actually, it wasn't even a theater. It was three little movie theaters that they took the walls down here in Denver, and they used to do some amazing shows there. They did U2 on their first American tour there, and so I think I was security on that one. And 2 years later, when we shot um, Under a Blood Red Sky at Red Rocks, I was the runner for that. So Bono and I were out that morning. He said, "Can we please get some tea for the people sitting out in the amphitheater?" And I was like, "Sure," because we used to open the amphitheater at 10 o'clock in the morning on weekends and noon on weekdays. So we were out there serving tea, and nobody ever expected it to turn out to be what it was. But I remember driving away that night thinking, wow, this was really something. I looked back at in my rearview mirror and saw Red Rocks and all the mist and stormy around it. And it was just beautiful. It's a beautiful place no matter when you go. But
Yeah.
it was, especially that night, we kind of went, wow, this was cool. This was definitely cool.
When did Red Rocks open?
Well, Red Rocks was built in the 30s. It was kind of a natural amphitheater anyway, but it was started about 35 as a project for the Civilian Conservation Corps. It was meant as a work program to put people back to work after the war. So it was built, and it was designed by Burnham Hoyt, who designed a lot of the parks in the country, and it's very much still the same as it was. He did the seats exactly the way they were, and the side boxes where the trees are. And it's amazing when you go up there and you see the original drawings we have backstage up there that he had done. And so it was then, and before that, actually, opera singers had gone up there and played because the acoustics were so good, and they just kind of sat on the rocks. But most of what's
Really?
there now, yeah, most of what's
That's
there now
cool.
um, is that original design, the way the stage backs up to the stage rock and the layers down below. For instance, when I was there, we used to have boards in front of the rocks in the dressing rooms and the catering room. And I told my boss, I said, let's take those boards out. I think the rocks are behind there. And he's like, but then people would see the rocks. And I said, well, that's kind of the point. So now when you go into,
Yeah.
after I left, I gave him a plan for what I thought it should look like. And then I left to go take another job. And I came back and he'd done it exactly as I'd drawn it. But he took the boards out. So the walls of the dressing rooms and the catering room and Red Rocks,
That
the
is
production office, are
cool.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is
it was
cool.
neat. It was really neat to come back and, and be happy that they did what I'd ask. And, we finally had the rocks as the walls of the dressing room. So anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
So go on. Sorry, I broke
yeah,
into your story
that's
there.
okay. So when I started, there were a lot of women doing security. As I said, we were bouncers. In fact, one year it was really rough then. I mean, we were definitely bouncers. I mean, one year we bought red T-shirts for the crew so the blood wouldn't show because it had gotten so ridiculous.
Jesus. Since 1985, Acme has been raising the bar in entertainment lighting, designing and creating fixtures that are powerful, reliable, and built to inspire. Over nearly 4 decades, Acme has grown into a global leader, trusted by designers, rental houses, and productions in more than 130 countries. Their product line covers everything from high-output profiles that bring precision and punch to brilliant washes and battens that paint a stage in color to rugged IP-rated gear built to survive the elements. Acme has a full lineup of dynamic effects that grab attention and keep audiences hooked. Every Acme fixture is engineered with performance and creativity in mind, helping designers push boundaries and bring bold ideas to life. Whether it's a global tour, a broadcast studio, a theater, or the biggest stage on the planet, Acme delivers. So if you're looking for lighting that's bold, innovative, and built for the spotlight, Acme is your product. Learn more and explore their full catalog at acmelighting.com.
So at that point, one of my bosses kind of went, we need to change this up and make this better. And so we got it to be much more civilized than it had been before that. So, but they didn't
They
put
gave
women
all
in
the
front of
ladies guns.
Yeah, exactly. No, that would not be a good idea.
Yeah.
Um, and some of the guys bad enough. But
Yeah.
they didn't have women in front of the stage, and they didn't have women doing overnights, and I ended up doing that partially because at the time, like, nobody else wanted to do the overnights. I'm like, sure, I'll go do the overnights, and they're like, but you're going to be up here by yourself, and I was like, so, you know, So, I sort of broke that barrier a little bit, and then obviously more and more women do it, and all ages people do it now. And in front of the stage used to be, pretty intimidating. Apparently, it was they wanted people to be intimidating, and I
Yeah.
apparently I'm intimidating. So,
Yeah.
that's where that came from. And then I just
Yeah.
kept moving up the ranks, so I would do everything. I'd go sell tickets, so I learned how it was we did to do hard tickets, but when I started, and we'd count the deadwood, and I'm sure nobody in the business now knows what deadwood is, but that's the tickets you didn't sell. You had to go through and count them. And my accountant friend from those days has got great stories about that. And anyway, but so you'd count the deadwood, and then we went to a select a seat system, which was the first computerized ticketing system. But I remember the days when we put two Bruce Springsteen shows on sale at Mile High Stadium, and we were bringing in so much cash that we weren't really, I mean, we were counting it when we took it in, but we had boxes beneath the ticket windows, and we just shoved the cash into the boxes because there was so much
Jesus.
coming in because we sold out to, stadiums of Springsteen in about 10 hours. So,
Wow.
and we just, it was just so much cash available
A-
and so much
And
cash around.
now you do it in 6 minutes because of all the
Yeah.
thousands of bots that are buying the tickets,
Oh, yeah.
for the secondary sellers.
Yeah, but I tell people, young people, it's like one of the things you need to do is you need to go work in a box office because that is a lot of, that's kind of the bottom line of what we do. You've got to sell those tickets, and there's things like ticket holds and pricing and things like that. But especially for production ticket holds, knowing to, I learned pretty quickly, before I put anything on sale, I was like, are you sure you're not going to shoot this? Because if you're going to shoot this for film or whatever, you need to hold, here's some specific places you need to hold ticketing. You need to hold seats for and things like that. So I really think it's important for people to work in a box office, at least know how box office works, and learn every bit of everything. The stagehands taught me about power, and in those days it was, you want a cold water pipe to hook your ground to if you don't have a real ground. So, because at that time buildings didn't have those necessarily. So, that's it was from the stagehands and the road crews that I learned all that stuff. And Patrick Stansfield taught me so much. He taught me about how to make sure that your floor was cleared right after the show, so you could get your PA down, so that would keep your your loadout moving and things like that. So I was just a sponge for anything everybody said, I wanted to hear it. So the
Yeah.
guys that are coming to Dining with Dinosaurs are the people that invented this industry. And it's just amazing to me. I'm thrilled to be there, but I really want to hear their stories because over the years they have taught me so
Everyone
much.
does.
Oh my
All
gosh.
of these folks who have volunteered their time and effort and everything to become dinosaurs are all really interested in being around the other people that are there because it's honestly it's an incredible list that we have this year, and most of them called us and said, "Hey, I want to be in this thing,"
Yeah.
you know. And so, I mean, it's really cool. It's such a cool event, and I'm glad you're going to be a part of it because I'm
Oh,
sure there's going to be a lot of people there who are going to be like, "Nancy, remember that time?"
yeah.
Because everyone's been to Red Rocks obviously at some point.
Yeah,
um
well, I got to see Alan Branton last year, and I'd worked with Alan a little bit before, but I produced the two John Tesh specials at Red Rocks, if anybody
oh,
remembers him.
yeah.
And for the second one, we were on Catalina Island, and we had to bring the biggest television truck at that time in the world, the most expensive television truck in the world, over to Catalina Island on a barge, and we had to make sure the tides were right to get it on and off and all this. And I said to Alan the first time I saw him, I said, "Have you ever forgiven me for John Tesh at Catalina?" Because we had to getting workers there and getting everything done there. It was a tough place, but to me, those are our greatest achievements. Or anybody can do it when it's in an easy amphitheater. It's someplace that's made for it. But when you do it someplace it's not made for, and or you do something crazy stupid with a ton of acts and changeovers and stuff like that,
Right.
that's to me when the fun begins, and that's when you get the really interesting. You learn how to do that from people, and
Yeah.
that's what I love about it. So I don't think I ever got through my history, but anyway, I kept moving up in Fay Line and did some buying media for them. You buy in Wyoming at that time radio spots, and you buy one and you get 10 free because they want the show up there. And um, So I ended up interviewing for the city of Denver for the assistant manager job for McNichols and Red Rocks, and I got it, which was kind of amazing to me. And I think the reason they hired me was because they knew I was always the first person in and the last person out with every single show. Every single show I was there, that the concert promoter did every show. So I went in and
Why
I
is
hadn't
that?
been.
Was that just who you
Well,
were?
because I was the runner, and I was the
Oh,
first person in to make sure everybody got what they needed. And now the caterers go in earlier than the runners, but um, I was just always the person. If somebody turned and said they needed something, if I didn't know what it was, I would go find out.
yeah.
I was just there, and I loved it. It wasn't like I was trying to impress anybody. It's just what I felt my job was, and I just wanted to get everything done for everybody. And um, so, I learned a lot there. My first job there was the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, and that was fun. I met a guy named um, Thane Morris, who is it turns out he is the godfather of pyro in the movies. And, we've got all the ladies from the junior league there, and I meet Thane, and he's this little guy with a handlebar mustache and the leather motorcycle jacket on. And he's the guy I was like, that's the guy I'm going to hang out with. And that's been a lifelong
That's
friendship that
cool.
he got an Oscar for inventing pyro for movies, basically. So,
Really?
and I just love talking to him. He's got the most amazing stories. So he's still in LA doing that. And
Was
my
Billy
brother's,
Brennan there at that time? Was he lighting that or
who is
no?
that?
Billy Brennan. I think Bill Brennan did the U.S. figure skating forever, if I
Oh,
remember
probably.
correctly. Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me. I didn't know anybody.
Uh,
I didn't know much of anything when I stepped into that one. And Thane taught me a lot, and then the stagehands taught me about here's how we make ice, and the engineers taught me about, the glycol system and the ice floor, and that you don't want to release it into the sewers because they did that once, and that was very bad.
you
But
just sound like an incredibly curious person. Like you're learning things that are not going to further your career. They're not necessarily going to change the outcome of anything, but you're just super curious. Like, I need to know.
Well, I am, and it's actually gotten me into some funny places. I learned from the fire department, about a lot of things. And one of the things I learned actually as a venue manager on one of the venue manager calls was we had a guy who was on, and he said, he's like, I got to go for a minute. Somebody hit our gas line with a semi truck and
Ooh.
burst it. So he's about to have a building full of people, and he's got a burst gas line. So what we learned from that was we all went out and figured out where the shutoff was for our gas line, because he said we had bollards around it, but somebody managed to get in there and bust it, and nobody knew where to turn the gas off for the building. So it seems like everything I've ended up learning, I've ended up using. When I did the Pope's visit in '93 here to Denver, which was just a funny thing for me to end up doing, but it turned out I sort of just made stuff up and we did it all. Um, for instance, I knew that we had teams of priests. We didn't know what to do with them. So we send them out as housing assessment people to the churches and the parking garages and the old department stores to find out the square footage and the ingress and egress and the number of restrooms and things like that. And I
You
knew that
sent
if we
priests out
presented
to
that
do
all
that
to them.
stuff?
What?
You sent priests out to do that stuff? Is that
We
what you
had for
said?
labor. We had these
Oh,
priests. I was
that's
like, what am I going to do with them?
hilarious.
So
That is
I
so
got him.
funny.
I know. So I got them together and I made this little form and I said, here's what you're going to record when you go to these places. And I basically got up at city council and said, I just made this up. I was like, so we're going to send these priests out and they're going to go and they're going to do all this information on ingress and egress. And then the fire department and the building department are going to issue us temporary occupancy permits. And that's what we did.
And
And
nobody
so
went, okay, Nancy,
no,
hang on
nobody
a
stopped
second.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. Like nowadays, it would hit the legal department or something, and they'd be like, okay, but what about insurance? What about liability? What about this? What about that?
Well,
Like,
and we
I
had a
don't know
little
that
bit
that
of
would have
that.
happened.
Yeah. We had a
Yeah.
little bit of that. Like they wanted to put minors in private homes. And I asked my dad about it. My dad's a child psychiatrist. He started the Mental Health Center of Colorado. And he said, no,
Yeah.
no, no, you can't ever put minors in private homes. So we didn't do that. So we did some other dumb stuff, but it was wild. It ended up being
That's cool.
180,000 registered people, and then we did a mass for 400,000, which I had laid out at the beginning, and then somebody else took it over. But um, it
Wow.
was it was a crazy experience,
What
and
year
I
was
did
that? 1993, you said?
93, yeah. I was hired in
Yeah.
92, a year before, and so we literally made up, here's how we're gonna do the registration, and I just made it up. I said, "Okay, here's the registration form," and they were like, "Well, how are we gonna file?" And I dragged in these old file cabinets and said, "Okay, we're gonna start with A for Alaska, and, a B and blah, blah, blah for the states and for the other countries," and that's what we did. We pulled in, like, 7 hospitals to work on the mass it was at the Cherry Creek State Park, which we tried to talk the church out of doing because it was really there was no development in that area at all.
Mm.
it was not a smart
What
thing to
about
do.
security, though? Like, I guess it wasn't as big a deal then as it is now, where people are just
Um,
looking to become famous by killing the Pope.
well, that was a big fear. And it's funny, when I first started the job, somebody gave me this book called The Sum of All Fears.
Hmm.
And it's
Saw the
about,
movie.
yep, well,
Yeah,
and the book is kind of like the movie, but the book is about Mile High Stadium, a bomb, and the Pope.
right.
And so I started
Oh,
and I was putting down
Jesus.
what,
That's just
yeah,
what you want to read right before that, huh?
exactly,
Ay, ay,
exactly.
ay.
So
Wow.
I put it down, and after the whole thing was over, I read it, and it turned out with security that we had this guy that came in that was supposed to have been from a White House, from supposed to be a presidential advance man. And Tim Brockman's now, he's been ACDC's security guy for a long time. If any of you all know Tim Brockman, he's just amazing. And he and I walked through some of the spaces that we were going to do the Pope's visit in. And it was really apparent to both of us that this guy knew nothing about how to secure a venue or secure anything. And we thought, this is really weird. Well, at the end, it turned out that he was a fake and he had manufactured his whole background. So like we called it a Washington number. They'd called a Washington number to check his credentials and check his
Oh,
references.
my.
And he'd set up somebody to say they were with the White House at a number in Washington,
Jeez.
D.C. And in the book, the director of security has something happen. He's in a paternity suit and he shoots himself, right? Well, this guy, 2 weeks before the Pope's visit, is handed a paternity suit and says he has cancer and leaves. So the book was unfortunately a little scary. It was a little too much like
Wow.
what we went through. So that was an experience, and that was very scary. We only had 3 people die. They told us we'd have 10 people die just based on the demographics, and that was very sad. There were people that had health issues, for instance, when they came in and they came to altitude, and Colorado's Denver area is very high, so people were having a hard time with it, and we had a lot of run-ins with the church people about how we were going to keep people safe, and because they were like, "Oh, God will provide," and we went, "Well, yeah, God's going to give us the things we need if you will let us have, the medical staff we need." Okay, that would be God providing for this because we need these people to make sure these people
Right.
are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a wild experience. I didn't, it's not something I ever expected myself to do. It's funny that all those little things that I learned though from the stagehands and like these touring guys, and some of these guys on the stage, I use that stuff to do these kind of jobs. So that's the fun part for me, and the stuff that people will never see. Are my biggest accomplishments. The shows that nobody ever saw that we put on and went really well. That or whatever, but people don't see those things. And the people I've worked with that I've been able to help. I mean, those are my biggest
Yeah.
accomplishments. A woman that worked for me at Dick Clark Productions, and she was terrible. She was the worst runner ever. She just didn't get it. And I was like, I'm going to have to fire her. What am I going to do? And she finally one day the light bulb just went on, and now she's a post-production supervisor for series in LA. She's very happy, but
Oh,
I just
really?
hang out with her, but she was my greatest accomplishment because she was just she was so bad at first. So
That's hilarious. Yeah. She was a project child.
she was, and that's,
Yeah.
I mean, I still get people. A friend of mine's a talent executive. You see her on all the award shows still, and she was somebody when she came to me as a runner from school, from college, and I was like, "You're going to work in the talent department," and she's now, a talent executive, and thanks me every time I
Yeah.
see her, which is really nice. I mean, I had very little to do with it. It's just, I mean, I love helping people. I always say to people, "What do you want to do? What's your dream job? What do you want to learn?" And when I was at Verilight for a little while in Nashville, this woman came in and said, "I want to learn lighting," and her name is Michelle, and she goes by Pickles. And she's a lighting person. And when I was working the FIFA World Cup in Nashville, she looks at me. I'm giving her a credential. She's like, "Nancy May," and I was like, "Yeah." And it was Michelle, and she now has this fabulous career, And
Really?
oh my God, it's like that's the best thing in the world to me is having a show come off or, having everything go right. I don't need I don't want accolades. I just want to see people succeed. I want to see
Yeah.
people and shows succeed and do good work, and that's the fun part for me. And to learn, and then get to hang out with these really amazing people. And that's
Yeah.
that's the best part.
Well, there's worse gigs. Like,
Oh,
I mean, I don't know that people outside this industry understand the intense pressure that goes on in this industry. Like, it just seems like a party. It seems like a circus. It seems like a
yeah.
lot of fun all the time. All you ever do is, hang out with strippers and do cocaine. Well, no, there's actually a whole bunch of work that goes on that stuff doesn't happen so much anymore. It's such a stressful thing. Like the whole show must go on thing is real. Like you can't be late, you can't miss a
Yeah,
date, you can't
yeah.
like nobody wants to refund all those tickets out there. So
Oh,
how are we going to make this work?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well,
but
when
Delicate Productions. Since 1980, Delicate Productions has mastered the art of lighting, audio, and video in high energy live settings, from iconic music festivals to global tours, corporate launches, award shows, sporting events, and beyond. For Delicate, the only way to get it right is to get it just right. With precision, creativity, and full service production capabilities, they turn bold visions into moments that linger in pop culture's subconscious. Need a single touring partner to handle audio, lighting, video rigging, and production design? Delicate delivers it all flawlessly. Located in the greater Los Angeles area and part of the Live Events Productions Network, Delicate has access to a deep nationwide inventory of gear and is powered by a highly skilled team amplifying your tour's full potential. Whether you need rigging, production design, or end to end show management, they deliver it all seamlessly. And it doesn't end there. Delicate delivers a full 360-degree production experience by teaming up with sister company Pyrotechnico, experts in fireworks, special effects, and drone light shows. Together, they create truly immersive, multi-sensory experiences that elevate every show. Visit delicate.com to see how unforgettable events get made. That's delicate.com, where technical brilliance meets creative impact.
I started, women were expected to be. Everybody thought I must be the drug, the drug dealer if I was the runner, which wasn't true. And
Yeah,
I never did those things, and it was really because I wanted to be seen as the person that they could trust. I didn't want to
yeah.
get into that. I mean, we would do the Grateful Dead, and there'd be cocaine all over the mirrors, and I'd have to go clean the mirrors. But I mean, there was a ton of it around. I just never did it probably because I'm a wimp, first of all. But
No, but
second,
that's also it explains your longevity in the in your career and in the industry and in jobs working for the government, for the city and stuff.
yeah,
Like
I was pretty naive about it. Um, But, what I saw what it did to people, and also just the fact that I didn't wanna be reduced by it. I knew that I needed my wits
yeah,
about me to do as much as I could and do as much as I could for people. So, and I saw a lot of people do it, and I saw a few people ruin their lives, and I saw
yeah,
mostly
me too.
luckily, I saw our friends who got past it and just moved on, which was great
Yeah,
that they figured it out that this is just not a I had one friend who said, "I realized if I stopped doing blow, I could buy a house," you know?
or two.
Or 2 or 3,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So, and I mean, that stuff's still out there, and it makes me sad when I see people doing it, even smoking pot and vaping. It's like, yeah, it's legal. It's kinda like drinking, but you know what? What is it really doing to you? Is it
yeah,
reducing your capacity to do a great job? And to me, it's like if we get into this business, you are in a place where you get to do amazing things and you get to meet amazing people. And, yeah, it's hard work. I mean, after I was at Universal Amphitheater, when I had 6 weeks with 1 day off in 6 weeks, my saying was sleep is for sissies.
uh,
And we did in that 6 weeks, we did 1 week and 7 days where we did The Who doing Tommy, and Mick Double kept saying to me, "You've got to get Visqueen for this. We need Visqueen to cover the gear that's laying outside." And I said, "It's August in LA, Nick. It's not going to rain. No matter what, it's not going to rain." Well, I got the Visqueen anyway, and of course it rained. So
oh,
and then we did
geez,
2 Bee Gees shows, and Rob Cowan was the production manager, and I hardly saw him at all, and afterwards, he sent me the cutest note, which I still have, that said, "Hey, this must have gone really well because I didn't see you at all." We didn't hardly see each other at all, so and then we did the MTV Awards within 7 days, and I just didn't sleep,
fun.
and I was
Yeah.
doing yeah, I was doing the payroll, which was on a computer, in DOS for 150 people, and they decided to paint my office that week, so I had to do it on the stage, on my little stage management desk on stage right, excuse me, stage left. I'm always dyslexic. And I put in all this payroll for 150 people, and I had to put in their social security numbers and all the times they worked. And in the LA local number 7, they don't stop with the time going up. So instead of just going straight time, time and a half, double time, double time and a half. It just kept going up. So, and this was the
Ooh.
time before MTV had figured out that they might want to stop at some point and save some money. Um, but somebody came and unplugged my computer because they needed the outlet, and I
Oh
hadn't saved
no.
it, and yeah, that was about it for me.
Oh no, it wasn't saved.
No, it wasn't saved, and it was in
Oh,
DOS. If anybody before Excel and Word, there was DOS, which was
yikes. I remember it
little
well. Yeah.
yes, little green dots, and it was horrendous. So at that
Somewhere
point, I was
someone's listening to this right now going, "What? It was
I know
in
they have
what?"
no idea what I'm
Yeah,
talking
I
about,
know.
and then anybody who knew DOS that will feel my pain, but, but I learned, of course, now I learned to save, but I've just been so lucky to have so many adventures, and so from Denver, um, being the assistant manager at McNichols and Red Rocks, I went to Universal Amphitheater, and, that was a kind of a tough trade, but it was a good move for me because I was already to the point where I was like, "Okay, we need to make things better at McNichols and Red Rocks, and my boss really wouldn't let me do it, like taking the boards out in front of the dressing room walls. So Universal Amphitheater, I walked in and literally was doing comic relief the first time, the first show I did there, and then just ended up doing show after show after show. But I met so many great people and worked with people that I'd known, like Patrick Stansfield, worked with him a lot more there, and got to see some amazing things. There were just things that I
Yeah.
shake my head now and go, wow, I was in the room for that, and musically or whatever. And but again, for me, it's not, and I don't have any interest in meeting the stars. I have my idols, a couple of whom I've met, but that's not,
Yeah.
that's not what it's
Me
about
too.
for me. It's about
Yeah.
yeah, and that's cool. And
Doesn't matter.
I'm happy to just sit in the room and listen to them. I don't need to know them. I don't need to hang out with them. I just, I just am happy to be in the room and have the nice surprises of an artist or something that you hadn't heard before. Or, sometimes when I did the Golden Globes for Dick Clark, you turn around and you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a movie star in that room because the Beverly Hilton
Well,
is so small.
even if it's not cool to you, sometimes it just feels cool because it's cool to other people. Like they go, "Oh my God, you met whoever, you met
Yeah.
so and so." Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and at
But it
Universal,
makes it difficult to go to regular dinner parties though, because
oh,
people are talking about, well, I was down at the pool the other day and Mildred from down the street, and they're telling all these stories, and you're like, well, yeah, I went and played golf with Bono, or whatever. Like,
yeah. Well, and and that's the thing. Like I said, I don't really hang out with them. It's funny though with U2, is I did their very first Little American tour, like I said, and then we did U2 at Red Rocks, and then they came back and did Rattle and Hum at McNichols Arena,
yeah,
and that was really that was wild because they shot it in black and white, but they put all this fog into the air, and we had this sold out show. Everything's going on, the cameras are rolling, everything's running, and the fire alarm goes off. And I'm thinking, oh, this is it. This is the end of my career. I have a full house. I'm pretty sure there's not a fire. But the producer was like, we've got to have more smoke. We've got to have more smoke. And we're standing there. And he's again, we've got to have more smoke in the air. We got to have more atmosphere. He called it atmosphere. And at that moment, the fire department bursts in the back door with gas masks and axes going, where's the fire? You can see a halo of smoke around this building,
yeah,
and here I'm going, oh, this is it. I'm done. I'm sure I'm going to get fired for this. There's no doubt. Well,
yeah.
they didn't fire me. Maybe they will now. Oh yeah. But they didn't fire me, but they gave me a really nice little special thank you at the end of the movie, which was very cool.
That's
So,
funny.
but I mean, I don't really, and like I said, it's not like I know them.
Yeah.
Would you remember me? Probably not. That's okay. Just the fact that, I was able to hear them play at Red Rocks and hear them play at other places, that to me is plenty.
Well, you
You
got a
just,
cool story about the fireman breaking in the
oh,
back of the stage or whatever, like that's
I
a
just
cool
thought that was
story.
it. I'm never going
Yeah.
to work again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, yeah,
That's
so I've been
awesome.
able to do, a lot of fun things, and like I said, at Universal, we just did so many shows, and I just never slept, it seemed like, and I think I weighed like 124 pounds, I was like a stick because I just ran up and down the stairs, and, oh, during that MTV Awards, two of the musicians got in a fight. It was, Vince Neil and Izzy, what's his name from Guns N'
Stradlin.
Roses. And I'm standing
Stradlin.
there,
Yeah.
I'm wearing a dress because I'm trying to look like professional, and I'm sitting here wearing a dress, and these guys come on this stage and start fighting in front of me. And I'm looking around going, there's no security here. I'm going to have to do this. So I
Oh
grabbed one by
no.
his scarf and one at the throat, and I was like, you go that way and you go that way. And, one of them was bleeding from the
Wow.
nose. And I was
So
like,
you
oh,
were a
really?
capable bouncer.
Oh, well, sadly, yes. But, yeah. So, I mean, I was like, do I still have to
When
do
you
this?
jump between two like stoned out of their minds musicians and break up a fight like that, like you got to be fairly capable, because
Well,
otherwise,
I knew they weren't drinking because at that time we didn't allow alcohol for MTV Awards backstage. If they'd
right.
been high, fine. But I knew they weren't drinking, so I know generally guys won't hit a woman unless they're drunk.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I learned as a bouncer, and so it didn't really worry me. I just knew that we were about to change scenes, and a big cart of band gear was going to roll right where these guys are fighting. I'm thinking I got to get them off stage, so I sent one down to the dressing room, one onto the back party room, and
Did you ever
and it
find
was
out what the
fun.
fight was about?
Actually, it's you can Google it. It was 1989 Universal Amphitheater, MTV Awards, and there's a big long thing about it. It was either somebody insulted somebody's wife or something else. Somebody said it was about Pamela Anderson, but I don't think that
There
was
was a
that.
girl in between all of
There
it.
was a girl.
Of
There was
course, yeah.
it's always a
Always a
girl,
girl.
Yeah,
It's always a
exactly.
girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Dumb
um,
knucklehead guys fighting over a girl.
oh, and I just kept going.
Typical.
Really, I don't have a security guy on stage to take care of this. I have to do this myself. But oh well. So yeah,
That's
but it was an
funny.
amazing experience, and then I ended up working, I met one of the producers for Dick Clark when I was working a show for him, for Dick Clark there, and he's like, "Oh, you're really good. Have you thought about working in TV?" And I was like, "No. Why would I wanna work in TV?" But, they ended up hiring me a year later and, said goodbye to Universal. Barry Manilow was always the New Year's Eve show in those times. Danny Elfman, Boingo Boingo would do Halloween, and, um, Barry Manilow would do New Year's Eve. So right after that Barry
Really?
Manilow show, I left and went to Dick Clark and did the Fiesta Bowl parade the first thing, and then did the, my second show was the Golden Globes, no big deal, but that was,
Jeez.
and, Lee Rose was the lighting designer on that, but and everybody, again, they taught me so much. I didn't rea I didn't realize, "Oh, yeah, you have to bring tape to put in the tape machines to actually record the show." That was one of my jobs. That's everything else I kinda knew about, but the TV stuff I didn't know very much about,
Oh
so
my goodness.
yeah, but that was a fun show, and we
How
ended
long
up,
were you there with Dick
sorry?
Clark? How long did you work with Dick Clark?
Well, off and on about 12 years, but when I started with
Wow.
them at that Golden Globe show, it was actually the first show after the, World Trade Center had been attacked the first time, and so a bunch of people were saying a bunch of the artists were saying the actors mostly were saying, "We're not gonna come because we're worried it's gonna get bombed or something." So,
Oh
I
yeah.
called the Beverly Hills Police, and we did the whole bomb check thing, with the dogs and the magnetometers, and people were like, "Oh, okay, if you're gonna do magnetometers, you're gonna check everything, and then we'll come." So, we had the magnetometers turned out, it wouldn't have gone off anyway, but, they were all worried that they couldn't come, but the Beverly Hills Police told them we were doing all these extra things, and they decided to come, and the show went on, and then I did the Academy Country Music Awards, which I did for a number of years, which is the show they really hired me for, and, that was really fun. And every time I got to see people was just the best, and again, learned stuff from everybody, the TV people and the stagehands again, just everybody I could ask questions of, I did, and,
Yeah.
I tried to bring as many people up, especially when I was at Dick Clark. We'd hire like 30 runners for the Golden Globes, and, um people would come and say, "Well, I have a film degree from USC," and we'd say, "Yeah, okay, go get lunch for everybody, and if you can do that right, then we'll send you on the next thing." So, but,
And then
we
maybe we'll
anybody
hire you as a director later.
exactly, yeah, exactly. Like, "I
Yeah.
want to direct." Yeah, well, guess what?
Yeah. Yeah. Go get coffee. Go direct your way down to Starbucks and get some
Yes,
coffees.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you get the director's lunch right? So,
Yeah.
but it was fun because we really did get to bring along, a lot of good people, and, but we had some really stupid stuff happen too, that I look back and go, "Oh, I wished I hadn't hired that particular person," or whatever, but,
Oh, really?
um, yeah, but it was fun to do. I love doing those shows. That was probably my favorite place to work because the guys I worked for were just wonderful, and just especially when I started, and they were so patient with me, and they were my direct boss said, "Oh, you're the best person we've ever had do this job." And I mean, I gotta tell you, I might as well have been given, $1 million of the Nobel Peace Prize. That to me was everything. If I could do a
That
good
is
job for
cool.
somebody, and help
So
other people
what
do
was
good.
your role there?
Well, I started as they called it associate producer. So I advanced basically all the shows. I put in the stagehand calls. I figured out where the trucks were going to park, like the recording trucks and the backup generator trucks, and where they're going to park and how the comm is going to run. And I learned to book satellite time. And I also was responsible for all of the bills. Every bill that came through, I would reconcile it
It
and
sounds like
give it to the
5
boss.
different people. That sounds like 5
I guess it
jobs, you
was,
know?
but you know what? Compared to Universal Amphitheater, it was, oh my god, it was a vacation. I mean, it was
Really?
Oh my god, Universal was really physically the hardest job I'd ever had. It was so much running, and I just never slept. I just because at that time, I'm told later that was the busiest time they ever had at that building, but,
Hmm.
we just never slept, and, it was nuts.
Huh.
Yeah, the stagehands that we had seconds, we had assistants on the stagehands, Local 7 did on their contract, so luckily the stagehands didn't have to stay all the time. They could actually get some sleep, but we just it's kinda like running the Walmart, 24
Yeah.
hours a day. You got this
Yeah.
load in, and you got your load of peaches coming, and you got your load of whatever Bandit is coming in, so,
Yeah.
you just had to run it like a 24 hours.
So I'm confused. So you were at Red Rock before and then went to California and then you
Right.
ended up back at Red Rocks
Yes,
later.
yes,
Ah,
exactly. Yeah, so after Dick Clark, during Dick Clark and after Dick Clark, I ended up doing other things. I did the Pope's Visit, and then I did a lot of other TV shows like the John Tesh at Red Rocks that I was executive in charge of production for, and also at Catalina Island, and, oh gosh, all kinds of crazy other shows. Um, but then I went and I did some kids shows, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad and Tattooed Teenage Alien Fighters from Beverly Hills.
oh my
Those
goodness.
classics you can find. Yes, those were interesting, but, I learned a lot from those too. Those were bizarre. Um, so then I ended up, going to Nashville to do a show called Primetime Country for Dick Clark, and that was a daily live set, 5 days a week, hour and a half show, and for those of you the funny thing is the rest of the television industry isn't used to doing live. They're used to recording stuff or taking months to shoot somewhere, as we all are so used to doing everything live. Everything we do is now. So, for me, that wasn't a big deal. But the people in Nashville were a little surprised by it. But it was
Yeah.
really a talk variety show during the day, and it was fun. But I was a little more hardcore, I think, than some of the Tennessee people at the
What
beginning.
venue was that in?
Well, it was at the Grand Ole Opry. We didn't shoot it. There was a smaller studio. We shot it at the beginning. We'd go shoot things out at the Opry, up at the at the Opryland Hotel a little bit, and then the Opryland Park, which was really a very nice park. Um, but it was funny because I had sort of a different speed than the people in Nashville, so I got a lot of grief from that at
I
first, and
can
then
see
later
that.
on
Yeah.
talking back to them, go, "Wow, you
Yeah.
taught me so much," and I have one friend that's like, "Hey, you have a career because of you," and because I was like, "Yeah, come learn this and come learn that, and what do you wanna do next? Let's help you learn to do whatever it is you wanna do next," and
Yeah.
so those people, most of them I'm still pretty close to, and, that was a great experience. I worked with, Dick Clark's son, who goes by Rack, R-A-C, and he's a prince of a man. He's just a wonderful person, and I mean, I was so lucky to work with him and so many great, great people and, people that taught me so much and probably put up with my silliness from time to time, but, um,
Yeah.
so from there, I'd gone to do, that, and then I came and then after Primetime Country, I did some other silly shows like Tuckerville with, Tanya Tucker, and she was in her kinda crazy period, but, she's her daughter her daughter, Layla, was, her father was the farmer next door, and at one point she wants to go get Layla, and she's like, "I'm getting my gun, and I'm going over to get Layla." We're like, "No, putting the cameras down, and we're walking away. We're not going any place with Tanya Tucker with a gun. We're just not
Yeah.
doing that." So,
Wow. She was a
it
wild
was
one. So you
it was
moved to Nashville for a while
I
then?
moved to Nashville, which I loved because I had my horses in my backyard, and, actually got married when I was there. You have to if you move to Nashville, it's in the contract, you have to marry a songwriter. So I married a songwriter, and
Oh.
he'd written songs for Garth Brooks and for a band called Lone Star, and
Oh,
really,
cool.
really wonderful guy. The marriage didn't last, but he was a wonderful guy, and we're still friends, and I got married in the backyard. My friend said, they sang "Go Into the Pasture," and we're gonna get married instead of going to the chapel, and we're gonna get married, and
Yeah.
the horses and dogs and cats were all in the wedding. So anyway, but yeah, he was great. He was a great guy, and he's still a good friend.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I was there, and then and the TV show ends, which they always do. And we took the show to Las Vegas and Houston, and we were at the Las Vegas Hilton for a bunch of shows. And you probably can't print this part, but when I first sent the letter to the Las Vegas Hilton, I was sending letters out to the hotels trying to get them to work with us and put our show into one of their showrooms. We ended up working with the Las Vegas Hilton. It turns out that I sent the letter to the director of pubic relations for the hotel, and even though we'd spell checked it
There
and
probably
everything
is one.
else,
I
yeah,
mean,
they're probably it's
I've
Vegas.
been at the Las Vegas Hilton many times, and I wouldn't be surprised by that role there.
Well, then it was old Starlight Express Theater that Barry Manilow's in,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just I mean, I'm a terrible typer and a terrible speller, and I'm dyslexic, so and nobody caught it. I had 2 people, but anyway, that was one of my worst bad spelling moments,
That's
so
funny. That's a good one. I like that one. That's one of those ones that ends up on the billboard and you're like, oh
But
no, or on the marquee,
oh, please no,
Ooh,
please no. But
whoops.
is that enough? But, I figured what the heck, somebody will learn from that one, right? But
That's good. Yeah.
even spell check didn't help me on that one.
Yeah.
So, but, we did the show ultimately, was canceled, which they ultimately are. And so I did some other work. I did some work for CMT there. I came back and did work for them on Crossroads, which was a show where they meld a rock person with a country person. So I was lucky to do Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie, and that was a wonderful
Oh,
show. And
fun. Yeah.
Lost Lonely Boys with their idol, who was Ronnie Millsap, and shows like that were really just, again, you sit there and you go, this doesn't suck. I am so lucky. Looking back, I'm like the luckiest person in the world. I've gotten to do all kinds of really wonderful projects and
You
some
worked
real
your ass
stinker.
off. You worked hard. Like I
I
can just hear it every time. Like you just outworked everybody around you and got grabbed. And okay, now let me put you in this role. Now let me put you in this role. That you were reliable and hardworking, and you learned stuff everything you did, and brought that with you into the next job where now you were even more valuable. And like these are all life lessons. These are really great. That I'm so happy you're coming to Dining with Dinosaurs
Oh,
because
thanks. Well, I
that's
feel
what
like
you
I'm
sit.
so underqualified. I mean, these people
No,
are literally,
no.
they are the people that, Joe Branham and Roy Bickle invented rigging.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
they
invented
did.
it, and I
They
think Alan
did.
Grant started the first TV, TV lighting for
Robert
music.
Roth created the square park can.
Yeah, this is like these people. People don't understand. Younger people don't understand. These guys literally they would go to their shops and whatever and come up with this stuff. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
like I said,
Well, I mean, audio companies too, like
oh,
Dave, I don't know if you know Dave, but
of course,
creating your own boxes in your shop or in your garage or whatever, because there is nothing. There is no
right.
big sound system to do a stadium show or whatever. You got to create it.
Well, and I remember the
So,
first time I saw the S4s, and somebody said, "Well, they're built to fit in a semi truck," and I was like, "Really? They built the speakers just exactly the right size to go into a semi truck?" I thought that's brilliant,
yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway, that's the things that impressed me, right? That's,
Yeah.
I didn't care about
No,
the
but
artist.
Nancy, without like bad saying, but blowing smoke up your skirt, you absolutely belong because like even just sitting here listening to you, you're so inspiring, because like if I was a young lady sitting at LDI listening to people and talking with people, I'd be following you around the room all day because, you've created a career around working hard, learning every chance you get, showing up. You said you got there first and left last. That to me is one of the greatest qualities in the world of a person you want working for you. See, these are qualities that I would pick before I'd even ever look at your resume. Like I wouldn't even
Mhm.
look at or care where you went to school or college or what your last 10 jobs were if I found those other qualities that you're talking about now. So no, I think you're going to be wildly popular at this event.
Well,
I think you've
I'm
got a
just
lot to
excited to
share.
be. Well, thank you. I do really hope. I am coming out with a new thing that I wanted to tell you all about, which is, I had a bunch of friends asking me for venues. Being in the venue business, I ended up being the assistant manager again for Red Rocks and McNichols, and then I opened Blossom Music Center in Ohio when MCA took it over. Had a lease with the Cleveland Symphony, um, and I've been a member of the International Association of Venue Managers for a long time. But one of the things I found was that people were calling me looking for venues. Marty Hom called and said, "I'm looking for a rehearsal space for Stevie Nicks in Denver." And Bobby Schneider, excuse me, called me and looking for rehearsal space in Colorado for Korn. And corporate people I knew were looking for space. And what I realized is that, there are some places you can go and find venues. But what I created was something that's kind of like realtor.com for venues. So you put in, I need a 500 seat theater within 50 miles of Omaha or something like that. And it will pop up with what's there. So we're working on right now populating it and working on the website. It's called venueresource.com. It's singular venueresource.com. You have to have a password to get into it. So, let us know if you need the
How does somebody
password.
get a password?
Email me
Do
or
they
ask.
register?
Yeah, well, and actually you don't have to register yet. It's under construction. It still has some things
Oh,
going on with it.
oh.
So it's not really ready for public
So
consumption
passwords are
yet.
for developers and stuff right
Yeah,
now, people
exactly.
testing the
So
site for you and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
and,
eventually they'll register. If they want to go on and view it to find venues or whatever, they'll go in and register.
And they won't even have to do that. It's like Realtor. It'll just pop up with a little line saying, here, where do you want to be? And, what kind of venue are you looking for? An amphitheater, a theater, a convention center, a meeting space, a parking lot. I have friends that do ride and drives, and they said they have a terrible time finding parking lots or open
Hmm.
space. So you can put that in, and it'll find those. It'll also have a section for a keyword, so you can put in that it's like ADA compliant or something like that. So then the other thing I realized is that there's also there's no white pages and no yellow pages anymore. So
Right.
I thought, well, if you need to put on a show, you need vendors. A friend of mine was booking comedians, and he's like, again, I need a theater between Denver and Chicago. My comedian's driving from there, and I'm looking for a venue, venues for him to play between those two cities. And then I need lights and sound, and I need catering, and I need security. So there's a vendor portion. Again, you say I need staging within 50 miles of Los Angeles, and you put that in, and Brown United will pop up, or whatever, whatever else you're looking for. You can put in specific things as well. And then I thought, well, maybe you need to book a band. Maybe you're the guy who's putting on a 50th birthday party for your brother-in-law. So I have a part that's going to be very cheap for entertainers. They can put themselves in, whether they're a speaker or an aerialist or a musician, they can put in what they are. And again, if they work 50 miles within of Omaha, they can put that in and people can find them. And I thought, is this really, am I just making this up, or do people need this? And I went to a friend of mine who's Carrie Marks, who's the musical director at the Grand Ole Opry, who I've known for a long time. And I said, Carrie, I'm doing this, but you're not the kind of guy who needs it because you're booked all the time. He said, yeah, but my friends really need this. He said, there's so many great musicians in the country. Nobody knows how to find them, you
Yeah.
know? And even FIFA, they wanted a country music band for their finale in Nashville, and they didn't know how to find a band, a country band. I'm like, you can't swing a dead cat again without hitting a country
Yeah.
musician in Nashville. So, it's just, I mean, and the other thing though that this really is about is resources. And then I'd like to add internships to them if they'll add their internships, but then also jobs. I've got probably, I don't know, 20 job boards, everything from technical theater jobs in England to BobNet, if you know BobNet, but you have to be a touring
Yeah.
professional to be on BobNet. So, I want to have all that stuff that people will let me in one place, so people can go and find this stuff. And then you can list the listings. The listings will be pretty cheap. Again, it's like the white pages and the yellow pages, if people remember those. So, I remember the promoters coming back when I worked at Phaline. They'd go to what we called the Frozen North. We do these Willie Nelson tours and things up in like North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, and they'd come back with the phone books from those areas, because that's the
Yeah.
only way you could find stuff, was getting the phone books.
Yeah.
So this is hopefully something that people will go on. It's not going to cure cancer, but if it's something that people will. Sorry, my dogs just came in.
No, I can hear.
Yeah, but if it'll help people put on safe events, it'll have event checklists. And when you go to hire an entertainer, here's the things you need to tell them about. Is there parking? Are they getting dinner? What should they wear? All these things that they don't think to ask. What electricity do they need? And stuff like that. So hopefully it'll just cut down on some of
It
the
sounds
brain
like a
damage.
massive undertaking, and I love the concept. I love the idea. I'm in the marketplace business myself, and I love marketplaces. I think, you know, there's this vast universe where you go and put something into Google and you don't know what you're going to get. You just get a mixed bag of junk, usually.
Right.
If you're looking for a venue, you're going to get anything from a barn to an arena or a stadium or something. And these vertical marketplaces that are much more specific to
Mm-hmm.
our industry or whatever, I think are very
Oh,
necessary,
Huggies.
and I love it, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck. I mean, it sounds like
Oh,
you're
thank you.
really trying to make it do a lot of different stuff. Your dog wants your attention badly. I could hear him.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they
No,
they
no, it's
came
all good.
outside. They were waiting there. You guys, come here.
They're
Um,
not small dogs either, are they? They
No, they're kind
sound
of,
big.
yes. They're not as big as the horses, though. I have horses, and they try to come in the house too. They're
Oh
the
my
house pets from
goodness.
hell, we call them. Yeah, they'll come onto the front porch, and I'll feed them tortilla chips, and they'll try and come in the house.
Well,
And
why do you think they're trying to come in the house? Because if
oh,
you're feeding them tortilla chips on the front steps, what else is in here? There's got to be something
exactly.
more. Yeah, maybe they need some tequila to wash down their tortilla chips or
Oh,
something.
don't give them any ideas. Pandora's already breaking everything.
That's
Is
hilarious. That's
Well, yeah.
hilarious.
I mean, when I was young, I said to myself, I want to have an interesting life. And I've been really lucky that way.
You've done
I've
okay so
life,
far.
it's mostly, yeah, and like I said, it's really all about the people, and and getting to do things. And even if I'm not doing anything big, like one award show, I my job was to change the heads over on the drums from real heads for the cymbals to dead heads. I'm not sure even what they call them anymore, but that was
Yeah.
my job. Is that I had listed when I had to change them over for what bands, and so I changed them over, and I worked with the center staging guys, Jan Parent and Johnny Caswell, and that was my job. But it was just like, this is fun. I mean, how often do you get to do that, And
That's
me, who I
awesome.
mean, and I don't know anything about music. I can barely play the stereo. I mean, I am pathetic.
Yeah.
Music to me is total magic. I mean, I know enough to advance shows. It took me forever to understand what a Leslie and a B3 was.
Yeah.
A B3 with a Leslie,
Until you
and
had to
when
get one up the stairs at Red Rock.
I knew how to
And
get
then
them
you
in,
knew what
yeah,
it
but I
was.
really didn't know what they did until,
Yeah.
some of my musicians were like, "You kind of really need to know this." But, and that's like I said, the music to me is magic. It's just magic. I'm okay not knowing a lot about it, but I want to know how to advance it, and I want to make sure that I've got everything there that those guys need. My job is to make sure everybody has what they need. That's my
Yeah.
job, to do their
Yeah.
jobs. And my other favorite saying is, I know what I know, but more importantly, I know what I don't know and who to call. That's
Yeah.
that's my saying. I have a friend that uses that one though
Yeah.
too.
Sometimes that's even more important than trying to know everything yourself because you can't.
You can't, and that's
Knowing
also the
people
fun
is
part.
very
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of loading in a B3 and a Leslie into Red Rocks, is it still like the toughest load in the country?
I'm told it's, yeah, maybe the toughest load in the world, although there are some buildings that I think still load things in from the outside up on winches that they bring out the outside to an outside window. I've seen that,
Yeah.
and that's horrible. Red Rocks we've got it down pretty well, and I say we haven't been there for a couple of years, but, started loading, we cross-load at the loading dock, which, uh is the guy there, my old boss, I asked him to put a roof over it and put lights on it, but instead he built a backstage to it. So there's still apparently no roof and no lights, but it's got sort of something downstairs from it, but
Yeah.
that's okay. As long as they're improving. It's a tough place, obviously. When I was there, we actually built a backstage road. You could get a semi up, and you can get a semi up there. Not a great idea.
Yeah.
It'll scare the heck out of your driver. I did it with John Tesh. We got the Denali, or the Green Crow truck up there, the biggest audio truck at that time up there. But I mean, the system works pretty well, and we have it down pretty well. It is. I mean, you have to backward load your trucks at your stop before Red Rocks if you're going to do it, which helps the most. And I think the last biggest show I did up there, I think, was 9 semis with Van Halen, and they insisted on bringing it all up there, even though it's like, why play Red Rocks if you can't even see the rocks because you've got all your gack in the way?
Yeah, that's
So,
true too, huh? You want to be able
yeah,
to see through it. Yeah.
exactly. What's the point of that? Or the people that put up, a lot of the EDM people put up a whole video wall across the back, and
Yeah, I
I've
just
stood
watched a
there.
really nice one the other day. Don't remember if I watched it on TV or on YouTube or something, but Joe Bonamassa
Oh,
at
he's
Red Rocks.
always lovely.
Beautiful show, and he's just a great artist too. I love watching, listening to him. But that venue is just I'm from Alberta. I'm a mountain
Mhm.
guy.
Yeah.
And so Red Rocks to me is just like it's as cool as it gets. Like there's just nothing cooler than that. It's so beautiful. Is the stage sound like the sound to the musician? Is it different? Do they say that it's good or bad or indifferent?
Well, obviously we reinforce everything, but you can stand on the stage there with no reinforcement and talk loudly, and you can be heard at the top of the amphitheater, and that's the way
Really?
they designed it. Yeah, it really is a natural amphitheater, and
Wow.
obviously, people bring in a lot of, additional volume. I remember doing the Grateful Dead there, and they were doing their wall of sound, and I have pictures of, each side where it's, scaffolding all up to try to get as high as they could with their audio at the time. And there's obviously a lot of better ways to do that now, but
Mm.
um, it is really very much a natural amphitheater. And one of the things I loved, and I feel so privileged, is I spent so much time there with nobody else there. When I would do overnights, and that's my favorite time, is in the middle of the night, like after a show, and the cleaners haven't come yet, but the raccoons come out and the deer come out, and everybody kind of wanders around you know, um, and the place is just magical at night when there's nobody there. Even, well, obviously when there are people there, but in fact, We Make Events, Brown Note, the local wonderful production company here in Denver, they we were going to light the Red Rocks. We were going to light Red Rocks and do a shot for that. So this is my big lighting job. Okay, Marcel, we had just put in one of those dials where you could dial the colors in on the rocks.
Yeah.
So I got to dial in the red for the rocks and then they had a photographer come in and take pictures of the ghost light there. Well, one of those pictures where I had actually just dialed in the Red on the Rocks ended up in the Grammys program that year for We Make Events,
Wow.
and it was only on the online program, but it's a picture of my lighting, you
That
know?
is cool.
I know, but
That
it's
is
I mean, it's
cool.
literally I can't light myself
You
out
got
of a
lighting
paper bag.
design credit for that,
Oh,
or
well, no, it was just on the thing, but it was just so funny because, like I said, I can't light my way out of a paper bag. I just don't see it, you
yeah,
know? And I've
yeah.
tried, and I'm terrible at it, so we hire people, we know
You
who to call.
know, my ex-wife used to say to me all the time, like, "Why do we have the worst lit house?" You know, and I mean, how's the
Well,
saying go? The cobbler has the worst shoes, or something like
mhm,
that. You know, like
yep.
that was always me. Like I never focused on lighting in my own house or for my own house. Yet I sold millions and millions of dollars in lighting over the years.
Yep.
Um, so didn't you get into some consulting too for other amphitheaters on stuff?
Yeah, I've done some over the years. The most interesting project is there's a place in Miami called the Miami Marine Stadium,
I know
and it
it.
was built
Yeah.
yeah,
There used to be
it's
jet
so
ski
cool.
races there all the
Yes,
time.
exactly, they built it for
Yeah, I
power
went and
boats.
saw them. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, and
I live
apparently
in
that
South Florida half the
oh,
year.
of course. Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love this place. So,
Mm,
I'd gotten a call from a company that normally does theater consulting, and they said, "Would you be interested in looking at this?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I went down and we looked at it, and I did a whole bunch of pro forma budgets for them and things. But the place was built for powerboat racing, and apparently they dredged the bay for it.
right.
But when they built it, I guess the bay's not really big enough for the power of the powerboats they used. In the first race, this famous powerboater came up and got killed in the first race because he
Right.
couldn't make the turn.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a famous place. In fact, it was used, as a backdrop for Elvis Presley movie, and, that was
I
kinda
didn't know
cool.
that.
Yeah, and then Jimmy Buffett used to do a lot of people so they used to bring in a stage, a little barge, and they'd load in on the side and then roll it in or, haul it into place. Again, it was a barge, and, or they'd use, little gangways to get the gear down there, and, a lot of people played there. They had the symphonies play there, but it was one of Jimmy Buffett's favorite places, and there's a great shot of him in the cover of the Miami Herald jumping off the stage into the water, and people are sitting in their, like, little dinghies and little tiny boats and inner tubes. They're sitting at around the stage in the water, but he's jumping
That's
off the stage
awesome.
into the
It's like
water.
stage
Yeah.
diving. Yeah.
Oh my god, yes, so I didn't think about
Uh,
that, yeah. So, but it was supposedly made unusable with one of the hurricanes, and, I wish I could remember the name of it. Oh, it was Andrew, I think, was the hurricane that made it they thought it was unstable, so they stopped using it, it sat empty for years. Well, they've
yeah.
been trying to get it back in, there's a group that's been trying to get it back in use for about well, gosh, like 17 years, and they're finally got the city of Miami. So, what I did for the city of Miami was I went down and looked at the building and said, I see this as a destination venue, which I really think it is, and people will be crazy to want to play this place. Excuse me, I talked to John Brown at Brown United about how would you do a stage here and blah blah blah. We had a lot of ideas, but they're started to do some work on it to make sure that it is sound, and apparently it is sound, but they've got a few things to be put together. So they put out an RFP for a management company or an operator to finish the renovations and get it up and running. And it's amazing. It's got an incredible view of the city of Miami, and
Yeah.
it's 5,000 seats. It's got some amazing graffiti on it right now. If you Google Miami Marine Stadium, people have painted like a rainbow over most of the seats, and it's got really cool graffiti actually all over it. And but I really hope
Interesting.
that they'll be able to get it together. I have a lot of things I want to do there if they do, but it's
Oh, that'd
just
be amazing. Yeah. Like I had a friend who was a professional jet ski guy, and he used to
oh,
have these jet ski competitions there, where they're doing backflips and all that stuff on jet skis.
oh, I love it.
And so he used to do shows there quite often, and I went a couple times. But
Wow.
and I remember when the guy died there as well. So yeah, yeah, that's a cool place. I'm glad they're doing
Oh.
something with it.
Oh, I really hope they get it up and running. It's really something.
Yeah.
I walked in and was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, this is." I mean, my head spins of all the things I'd like to do, but I better keep my mouth shut because I just tend
This
to go on.
marketplace, you're doing it by yourself? You've got a
Pretty
partner,
much, I've
you've
had
got help, hopefully?
yeah, for venueresource.com, I've had a bunch of my friends who are most of in the business and not working or whatever, helping me, source venues and things like that. So, like Pennsylvania, we have about 1,000 venues and vendors just in Pennsylvania that we've sourced.
Wow.
So we'll be sending them out invitations to say, "Hey, would you like to list with us?" and, trying to make it very affordable. It really is to be a resource. I mean, when I first brought this up at IAVM, somebody in the room said, "You're gonna be rich." And I was like, "Well, that would be nice." But really the point is to have something that's gonna work for people, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, you can always evolve too, so you can start it, sorry, as the yellow pages or white pages, and then evolve it into a full-on marketplace where you're connecting this to this to this to this to
Mhm.
this, and there's little fees that can be charged in there and stuff. Because I will tell you, like, whatever amount of work you think it's going to be right now, it's about 4 times that. Like, the ambitious things that you've told me you're going to do with it, I'm like, whoa, because pick any two of those things and it's an enormous
Yeah.
undertaking. And so when you add 10 or 12 or 15 things that you're trying to connect, it's big. It's really, really a big, big challenge. So, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but
and the
like
hardest
I
part is
said,
finding somebody who knows how to do WordPress, which
yeah.
you're probably familiar with. Like, apparently 86% of the websites in the world are on WordPress.
Hmm.
I Googled that, and then also HubSpot, which is a, customer retention
Yeah.
management software. So the things I don't know are the computer stuff, and that's where I've run into trouble finding things. Finding it's like I know what it needs to be and what it wants to be, and then obviously it'll evolve into more things. The big thing, like I said, is I want it to be resources. I want people to know where they can get training and how they can, get training and find jobs and then find what they need for everything. And it's probably not going to be everything everybody needs, but
How deep are you into the building of the whole site? Like, did you just start, or is it way, way deep in?
we're probably 3/4, I would say.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
we'll add features later on. There's definitely
Yeah.
features we'll add later on that I have
That's what
I
you
have in
should do.
mind.
You
Yeah.
launch what you call an MVP, the
Oh,
minimum viable product. So basically something that works but has no bells and whistles, and maybe you're doing some stuff in the background manually that looks like
yes.
it's automated or
Right,
whatever.
exactly.
Yeah, and you got to do that because you want to test and make sure that things work, and that's what people want versus this over here. Because otherwise, development costs can really run completely out of control. It,
Yeah.
it can just get to a point of being, where you're suddenly $500,000 in debt on a project that you're trying to build or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a love-hate relationship I have with technology and product development when it comes to these sites and stuff. So
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I wanna talk to you some more about that because 'cause you've made this movie, and I'm sort of trying to make this movie, and some parts of it have
yeah,
been easy. It's of course, and it's never what you think it's gonna be, so
yeah,
but like I said, what I've just found out is that the more things come up that people need that are actually easy, for instance,
yeah,
there's one named Betty Siegel who is at the, Kennedy Center, and she is the most knowledgeable person about, accessibility and
yeah,
ADA, and every day she has more information. It's just amazing the things she comes out with, and then so I'd like to work with her on being the mouth for her. How can we get out this information and where people can find the information they need for
yeah,
those kinds of things. And,
yeah,
same thing with sustainability and all those things. It's a matchmaking service, and hopefully people will find what they need on it.
yeah,
And I'll be kind of beta testing with a bunch of venue managers and hopefully vendors, friends that I have in the business, Marcel. And
yeah,
so it works well for everybody.
yeah. No, like I said before, sorry, I'm coughing here, but like I said before, um, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to spend some time with you on talking about how all of these things come together. And the bigger conversation for me would be around um sort of patience and almost abstinence, like basically removing things before you add
Oh,
things,
okay.
so scaling
Interesting.
it
Okay.
back before scaling it up,
Interesting.
because
Okay.
whenever you try to do too many things, that's when it gets really super complicated and eventually
Mhm.
expensive. When you just try to do one thing really, really well, and then you add another thing. And then, like, for example, when Uber first started,
Mhm.
they started, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was like 4 city blocks in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
And then they expanded out to 8 city blocks and then 12 city blocks. And then eventually they went to another city and added another city. So instead of just saying, we're going to do the entire United States right out of the gate, they knew that that was just too much. So they started from a very small scale and then scaled out from there. And so that would be my probably biggest piece of advice would
Mhm.
be to um, do less things and do it really well. And then
Mm.
as those things start to work, then you expand other things, other things, other things. Cause, otherwise it's just going to be a massive undertaking and you'll have a lot of things that don't work. And then what do I do?
Yeah,
Now what do I
yeah.
do? Which
Well,
one
I'm
do
I'm
I
gonna be
fix
bugging
first?
you after this, obviously.
Yeah,
I'd
no worries.
get your
No
wisdom
worries.
on all this after this and show you some of it and see what you think.
I'm very very giving with my time. So
Oh, good, good.
to my detriment probably, but yeah.
Well,
Well,
this is the first place I've sort of publicly announced this,
it's very
because
cool. It's
obviously
very cool. I
there's
love what
other
you're doing.
entities who could do it much easier, or can do it probably faster and have a lot of money to do it, but I feel like, again, it's really meant to be a resource and really meant to help people and help people learn, find out where do you learn and where do you find this
Yeah.
stuff, and how do you find these things, and that's the big thing.
Well, not only is it my business, but I'm a huge fan of these really focused vertical marketplaces and
Oh,
in our industry. And so, you've got what's her name, Nikki, doing gigs, and you've got now Sooner has one around
oh,
sets, and you've got, you with venues, and like I love this kind of stuff. I think it's very necessary because people don't want to go on Google and look through or eBay and look through, cat toys to try and find a set piece that's for sale used
oh,
on
I can't
eBay,
wait to see this,
you know.
especially Sooners doing it. Oh my god, I can't wait because we all know that some of these sets, my old boyfriend, a guy named David Russell, was production manager, tour manager, and he would go do Tina Turner. He's like, "Oh my gosh, we have this great staircase, and we don't want somebody just to throw it out." We all know there's wonderful, amazing set pieces out there that people can use. I mean, I'd love to do a whole
Yeah.
house out of set pieces. It's just there's
Yeah.
incredible things out there, and I love hearing that they're not going to go to waste.
While you're talking, I'm actually trying to look this up because we keep talking about Sooners.
Oh,
Oh, here it is. It's called setchange.com with a dash between set and change. So it's set-change.com
hmm,
is her website.
oh, cool,
And yeah, yeah, it's basically it's old sets that are no longer being used or whatever. And it's
brilliant.
something I always thought to add to Gear Source, my main business, because one time I was walking through upstaging with John Huddleston and I said, "What's with all those stage decks? What are those doing there?" And he goes, "Oh, they belong to the Stones. It's part of their set from at the time, I think it was Steel Wheels or something."
Mhm. Wow.
And I said, "What are you going to do with all that?" And he said, "I don't know. We're storing it right now for them because they don't know if they want to keep it or get rid of it or whatever. So we're just storing it for them as a favor." And I said, "Well, that doesn't sound like a winner." And he goes, "No, not really." Um, and so they had come up with an idea to basically take the 4x8 stage decks, put
Mhm.
legs on them, and get the Stones basically to sign them and
Oh.
then lacquer over the signatures and sell these as conference tables signed
Oh,
by the
wow.
Rolling
Oh my
Stones
god.
under a lacquer top, right? Like, what a cool idea. And they were going to sell them for 5 grand each. And they
Wow.
took it to the Stones and they just couldn't be bothered. They were like,
Oh, come on.
nah,
Alright, alright,
what
we
do we
gotta we
want to
gotta
do
fix
that
that.
for?
I wonder if he still
Yeah.
has them. Wow. Yeah, the stuff that's
Yeah.
sitting in people's warehouses is is gotta be amazing. Oh, well, yeah, I'm doing too much on the website, but one of the things I do really wanna do is I really wanna have a place that people can buy the books of all these people that we know that are writing books. Alan
Yeah.
Branton's books, and, there's so many cool things out there that people can find that have, so much information, and,
Yeah. Yeah.
a friend of mine, who was a tour manager for, like, Joni Mitchell and, Crosby, Stills and Nash, he ended up working for Stephen Bochco doing television, doing, oh gosh, what were they called? The really they were big, police dramas, but anyway, he has a set of books, they're fiction, but, you know,
Oh,
I just think it would be fun to have a place where you can find all our friends' books.
yeah. An industry bookstore. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a
yeah.
cool idea. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. I wish you
Well,
well. I
thanks.
think it's a necessary, I think it's a great idea and a necessary tool for the industry. And I hope you do really well with it. And it'll keep you connected to people too, which is fun.
Thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate letting me talk about it. Like I said, it's hopefully gonna be live beginning of the year or so, and,
Cool. Good luck.
you know So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be asking and the thing is too, it's like contribute to it. If I've missed if there's a venue you know about, tell us about it. If there's a vendor you know about that we don't know about, tell us about it. If it's especially the hometown heroes, because we may not get those, as much. So, we're really hoping people will contribute to it in that way.
When it's ready to launch, let us know, and we'll share it out
Oh,
on
thank
our
you.
socials and stuff like that as
Thank
well to help you
you.
get it out there.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. Well, like I said,
of
you're gonna
course.
be bugging you for your opinion on these things soon,
Yeah.
so.
Well, and I'll see you in a couple weeks in Vegas.
Yay, I know, I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
it's going to be good. It's
Yahoo.
going to be good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. It's been a
Oh, thank
blast
you.
talking to you, learning a little bit about your story. You have an incredible story. You're a big ball of energy for sure, and you've done so many cool things. And I can't wait to see, like, if they're whether they're young ladies or young men. Like, I don't see. I always, I'm sort of when it comes to people. Male, female, black, white,
Mhm.
I don't care. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's just a person. So whether
Mhm.
people gravitate to a woman or to a man to learn from shouldn't make much difference, in my opinion. But I think if there are young ladies there, they're going to be really anxious to talk with you
Um,
because there are challenges, obviously, still, even
mhm.
2025, there are still
Yep.
challenges for women
Yeah.
coming up through our industry. The all the usual, stereotypes and
Yep.
everything else. And then, sexual advances and just all the different stuff that happens to a woman
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily happen to a man. And and so to be able to talk through that with some of the young folks coming into the industry, I think is fabulous. And it's a huge, huge value to those people. And you'll probably get a lot out of it too. So
Well, yeah, I hope so. I mean, I really want people to encourage to try it out and try things, and that's the thing too. You'll try things, you'll find what you like and as important what you don't like.
yeah.
But, try everything and, learn everything as much as you can. You don't even have to do it, just I mean, I vocabulary is half of it, knowing what stuff is,
Yeah. It
and
ain't
how
easy.
to do with
Because
it.
some of
Yeah,
it ain't
exactly.
obvious either, like, what the hell is that?
Well, especially in
So,
your business. I mean, lighting changes every 5 minutes, and I'll hear
yeah, it
about an
does.
aeratron or something. I have no idea what this stuff is. Okay, is that a moving light?
Yeah,
Is this a I
yeah.
can't begin to keep
Trust
track.
me, I don't even try to pay attention anymore because 'cause I'm involved on the business side of the business, so
Yeah.
I've had to give up on learning every new product every time one comes out or whatever. I had to give up on it, so I
No, I
let the young
understand.
kids do that stuff now.
Yes.
All right, Nancy, I'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks so much for doing this,
Awesome.
it was fun.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Have fun.
All right, you too.
Okay.
GearShare, the world's first AI-powered cross-rental platform built for the live events industry. The GearShare team have been busy onboarding customers and connecting rental and production houses around the world to smarter ways to find and deploy the gear they need without the usual chaos. And now, with a new affiliate program, you can earn just by sharing this valuable tool. Whether you're a designer, account exec, or production manager, if you've got connections in this business, you can offer a discount and get paid real money when your friends sign up. It's as simple as that. GearShare is expanding globally, helping companies to reduce CapEx, increase utilization, and keep shows rolling smarter. Check it out and join the disruption at gearshare.live.